Hello everyone, welcome to Deconfine. I'm very pleased to present to you, in my eyes, a phenomenal French artist, Justine Emard, joining with us from Paris. Justine, in her work, engages with new technologies and explores new relationships that are being established between our lives and these new technologies. By combining different image medias from photography to video, virtual reality to augmented reality, she situates her work at the crossroads between robotics, objects, live 3D prints, organic life, and AI. In this festival, Deconfine, we are highlighting and presenting three works of hers that interrogate the many layers of these relationships with technology. If you haven't seen them, I really invite you to visit the festival website and to explore the three works, Reborn, Coexistence, and Soul Shift. Justine, thank you very much for being with us today and agreeing to share some thoughts about your artistic practice. I hope you are safe and sound in these strange times.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
Great. I'll just begin the conversation with my first question to you in that case. Justine, you work extensively with subjects such as AI, machine learning, robotics, and advanced digital technologies. When was your first encounter with these domains and what attracts you towards these subjects?
Okay, hello, and thank you for this talk. I'm very happy to be part of your festival and to be able to introduce some of my works online. And I think it's a very good initiative between Europe and also South Asia. So thank you very much. I'm very happy to be part of this project. To answer your question and to start from the beginning, I graduated from an art school in 2010. So I was really focused on the art and media and image photography videos. But I started a residence after that in a lab about virtual reality, where I started to learn about programming. And for me, it was very interesting to discover this new world because I always had been interested in images and technology. And for me to discover new opportunities of using images and to merge different realities like 3D objects in, like, for example, like the augmented reality I discovered was a really big step in my practice. I started to create my first installation Screencatcher in augmented reality and drawings in 2011. And I really discovered through this lab where I was in residence. So I always have been interested in twisting some technologies to become an artistic medium. So maybe I can show you like a few images, but for me, it was very like a big step when I started to be able to use the programmation and the computer systems. So this is a Screencatcher, my first installation with augmented reality. I wanted to connect the drawings and the video through a very interesting medium. And it was also a way for me to question the art and the medium of art. So I presented it in many museums and many places, and it became like a very important part of my practice. So yes, I can say that the first step in technologies was through images, and I also did like a quick training in a mechanical engineering lab in 2010. It was a scientific lab where they were working on autonomous cars, and I was really impressed by how they could really use the GPS, the sensors, the trackers to make something. So yes, my first step was very much oriented in image and little bit robotics.
That sounds really great. Justine, in that case, my next question would be that in one of the interviews, you said that what interests you in AI, in artificial intelligence, more than the intellectual capacities of the machine is the way it takes physical space, the way it embodies the software, and if I may say, exists. Can you elaborate?
Yes, maybe I will show you some images about the project I did last year. So I like the idea of the friction between the hardware and software. And I like the idea of the inside mind, the mental world, and how it can embody some objects, some bodies, speech, movement, and attitudes. And I'm very much interested into the concept of the ghost in the shell, and how we are animated ourselves as human, and how we can animate inanimate objects. And I would like to share with you this project I did last year, which is a project about dreams. So for me, the result is as important, no, the process is as important as the result. And this project was diving into the dream worlds. So I collaborated with some neuroscientists to collect some dreams. So actually I work with a dancer because in the end it was a performance. So we collected her dreams with an encephalographic neural headset while she was sleeping. After, in the morning, we cut it and we extracted the data from the electric signals. And in the end, I use an architecture software to give the shape of the dreams, and which was directly printed on the stage in front of the visitors. So it was really a way to connect our thoughts, our thinking, our soul to something very material and physical, which was very experimental because in the end, like, I am not a scientist, I just use some data to make something, but it was an interesting process to see how we can make the plasticity of the dreams emerge into a material. And something I use is like a clay. Actually it's porcelain, but it's a kind of clay which is really soft and moving, and even when you print, there is always a kind of a dimension very floating, which is an echo to the plasticity of the dreams. So this is an example of how my work can be into this interstice of mind, body, and embodiment. And this was a very particular project because it was for a performance. So there was also a challenge to use a robot. I think later you have a question about the performance, but it's always a challenge to use those robotics to create a moment because it's so unpredictable and so uneasy to use that it can create like many problems. But yeah, this is about your questions. I think to work on dreams, but with a very technological output, was a way for me to connect something more immaterial to something material, to give a materiality to dreams. Okay. This is an example. But...
That's great. That's fascinating, actually. I mean, this is a whole different discussion, but I would definitely like to have this. No, thank you so much for showing this work. I think it's brilliant, and it's a great example that you put there. Coming to the series of works that we have presented to the larger audience under the festival Deconfine, it revolves around this humanoid called Alter. Can you tell us more about this humanoid?
Yes, of course. So I started to work with Alter in 2016 and 2017 while I was in residence in Japan. So this robot Alter is a cross experience between two Japanese labs, Takashi Ikegami and Hiroshi Ishiguro. And this robot is very particular because it's generated its own real-time behavior by reacting to its environment and to people. So he expressed himself through complex movements, and these movements are constantly changing regarding its algorithm. So what I liked is the fact that its internal system is not created to reproduce human behavior, but to generate its own behavior. And I think this experience is a way more interesting than those robots trying to speak and to integrate our everyday life. And my idea was really to create a series of work thinking of how we can coexist with those new types of machines, and which are not based on the imitation, but on their own lifelikeness and their own being. So yeah, the idea was to start thinking of how we can maybe coexist together and maybe build another future. Even if we don't speak the same language, or for me it's also a metaphor about to speak about other things and the fact of being together, and even if we don't use the same tools and the same voices and the same communication thinking, we can still invent something. So my idea was really open at the beginning, and I really worked in the lab making experiences, and I would say I started really to work much more as a scientist than as an artist, like to put really like a process. But in the end, I created like 3 artworks around these questions.
Wow. But I mean, I would also like you to elaborate further on this when we say that, because in your work you are trying to change the human perception of machines to something which is much more than just a human creation or something which is for the human needs. So what exactly is this vision? What do you mean by that Alter is not a robot? And what is it? What is this vision that you are trying to express or convey through your works?
Yeah. So I think I always had been interested in machines, many types of machines. There is something magic about these objects, which is kind of moving and which can produce or create something. And yeah, I think this function of the machine is something very boring for me. I started to really get interested into machines I could act to divert them from their original function. And yeah, I think this is interesting when things are not how they should be, and to consider that a robot is important only for its existence, I think it's a very beautiful idea, compared to this robot is here to just fill the gap, fill the space, or to have this very industrial task. That's why also I started to work with industrial robots, because I think we can really give them another way of acting, and to put them on the stage. I think it's a very interesting idea regarding like the art world. And also there is a parallel we can do with humans, which is interesting for me. So yeah, regarding this specific robot Alter, he's not created for any needs or any functions. Like it's just an experience for the beauty of the experience, and that's why I was so seduced in it, because he's not he's just yeah, it's just here and just here to try things and to compose with. So the vision I'm trying to deliver through my work is just questioning our humanities and how we can co-create with a kind of being, which is obviously a robot, but also like a machine learning system, and which is sometimes kind of abstract. And for me, the appearance is also very important, because to have all these mechanical parts and this kind of human, but you really see that it's a robot. It's not a trick. Like, we are not lying to people. We are just in the presence of the robot, where we can project also our own feelings and our emotions. And it's really funny when I exhibit these artworks that people are telling me many things, like I saw a child, I saw a woman, I saw an handicapped person, and it was very interesting to see that people project their own emotions into him. And especially the kids, they have no filter. They just see like a robot, a machine, or someone, but they are not afraid. And regarding human, like adults, it's a bit more difficult, because the robots always refer to the science fiction world, or so they always have this bad image of the human machine.
Yeah, and that's so true, actually, that I mean, I think it must be interesting also and intriguing to experience and to witness these experiences of people when they come in touch with humanoids such as Alter, and especially the difference in reaction between how a kid reacts to it and how an adult with all of this baggage that one carries reacts to this whole thing. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's very nice to observe.
Yeah. Coming to the first work in the series that we are presenting, Reborn, the video installation beautifully captures how humans are not alone. I mean, the fact that the actor learns from the robot and performs is completely opposite of how we perceive machines. It is a very non-anthropocentric position that you are taking as you call for some sort of a renaissance. Can you elaborate what really is Reborn and what takes birth in this video installation for you?
So this installation, Reborn, I created in 2016, was the first artwork I shot with the robot Alter. And I filmed the robot for several hours alone in the dark with it. And it was really like a strong experience to be alone with this machine. And I realized that I was getting more fascinated and more kind of hypnotized by it, because I could watch it endless, and it was very nice experience to be alone in the dark with it. But at that time, I was invited to make an exhibition in Hiroshima, an exhibition called Hiroshima Art Documents, and this is a very interesting show happening in the places, the buildings which are still standing after the bombing of Hiroshima. So there is a very strong memory, and I wanted this strong memory to really get in touch with a more contemporary and technological feeling. And I decided to work with a dancer and to ask him to perform as well with me in the dark. So we performed in the old Hiroshima bank in the basement. So it was another really strong experience to be in this building, which has such a strong history, and to really perform something regarding a robot. So we were trying to communicate two different periods, memories and also projection into the future. And through the video, I was able to make these discussions happening between the two of them. And essentially, this is like, so this is the human who started to dance something in order to respond to the robot. And that's why it's called Reborn, because in this artwork, the idea is to really learn from the machine. Like the machines, we learned everything to the machines, and now they are able to learn by themselves. And I wanted to give this perspective of how through this video, which is a multi-channel video. But as you see, I always make a projection, so you also have this immaterial material of the image, which is like just light, has a memory and has something which can really overlay the space.
That's great. I mean, in coexistence, then, I mean, so this was Reborn, and then you went ahead in coexistence with the same actor, Mirai Moriyama, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Moriyama.
Yeah, Moriyama. I mean, so in Reborn, there is this actor, this same actor performer who's performing and learning from the robot and reacting to it. And in this, probably they come face to face. I mean, the audiences haven't seen the entire performance or the video, but could you just describe what happens in that space when both of them come face to face in front of each other?
So I would say this is not exactly a performance, because it's really something that is impossible to show to an audience. Like, I see it more as a scientific experiment, because it took like really hours of shootings and to really find the right place where we wanted to be. For me, coexistence was a way to reunify the two characters into one frame. So I organized the shooting. It was really not easy, but in the end, I decided to keep like the first encounter between the two characters. So the first part of the video, it's a dialogue between them. And after many takes, I decided that the most natural and original file I should keep was really this first meeting, because really something happened at that time. And the second part of the video, which is more in the dark, is a moment where they are more communicating from gesture, movement, and body motion. And I think this is also something which is not so much explored in terms of artificial intelligence, because we see many chatbots, many robots who can be receptionists and talk to people and answer, and with this language skill. But regarding the body, also there is a lot to say. Like when you speak to someone, you use your body motion, your hand, your face expression. And I wanted also this to be part of the movie Coexistence. So yes, I made a lot of experiences actually, because every time we had to set the robot into different positions. And also what I worked on the program with to create Reborn with the developers, and after I trying to reproduce something, but it was impossible, because in between the robot had learned so much that some things he was not able to do again. So it was really composing with another form of life, and this is what I liked, and I got really interested. So that's why I'm saying it's not really possible to be a performance, because the robot is doing what he wants to do. So I would say it's more a film, because it's also my own interpretation as an artist of what I want to select, what I want to show, and cut and edit and give my direction. But yeah, it's really fascinating, because I went through so much experience with it that I was really able to determine what was interesting or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. It's interesting because in this particular case, or in this series of works that you're dealing with over the years, you are also dealing with not just a human, but a life of its own, an AI, which also grows, which evolves, as you just said. And because of that, also you have to constantly innovate and change your decisions and decide new things, because it evolves over the period of time. It's not a static subject. I think it's fascinating
Yes.
what you did with all these three works. Congratulations. Coming to the third one, in Soul Shift, you go a step beyond, and this time you create a rencontre, a meeting between Alter and its previous inactive version. Now, by doing this, you evoke themes such as reincarnation and collective memory and sharing. The name itself, Soul Shift, it pushes us in that direction. Can you describe how you do so?
So one day, Takashi Kagami, like the scientist I collaborate with, told me that the robot was broken. And for me, it was a disaster. I thought, oh, such a shame, because I had so much experience with this robot, and what can we do next? And they said, oh, but it's okay. We did a new one. We did a new version. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. We should really organize the meeting between the two robots. But the older one was really, really broken. And still I wanted to make like an encounter between them. And so they were stored in the same museum, the science museum, but not at the same place. And I started to ask people what we could do, and if we could make them meet each other. And it was very complicated, but in the end we were able to bring the altar one to the altar two. And it was very interesting what happens, because we started like to display them, and all the staff of the museum came, and they were super curious about what was going on, because it was like the first time they were seeing those two robots together. And even just this was a really good moment to see how it raised all the curiosity of the staff of the museum, and I knew it was already a nice moment and arousing the curiosity of people. And after that, I really thought about this Japanese concept of mono no aware, which is the beautifulness of the impermanence of things. For example, in Japan, when you're a kid at the school, we teach you that there are some earthquakes, tsunamis, and still you have to rebuild yourself and renew yourself. And this is life, this is death, and this is how the world is growing. And in Europe, I think we are very attached to this eternity concept. So this is like two things very opposite. And regarding the idea of the technology, this is also something that we believe which is so strong, like technology is strong, technology is something which will never break. But I wanted in this work to show this fragility of technology. So I was very moved to see them together, and we started to connect Alter 2 with the system of Alter 1. And this video is just like the robot waking up with all the memories, all the learning of the previous robot, and looking at it and just signifying that he's recognizing that his brain has been transferred to the other one. And this is a kind of very simple moment, but very much into this idea of the ghost in the shell, the spirit, the soul, but connecting to robotics.
I mean, that's crazy because I mean, it's of course just a meeting of between the two, between a newer version and the older version, but also, as you said, that how the entire museum and all the people around were excited to see what was going to happen and how this meeting would be. I mean, I think like the essence of this particular piece that you did is not just between them, but also in us when we witness that, and the excitement and the curiosity that comes within us to see something like a form of a reincarnation which happens here, that the new altar sees itself in its own body with all the collected memories and experiences with it. I think it's incredible. But I mean, coming back again to these, there are these underlying themes in your works, which is such as soul, spirit, coexistence, and animism. Now, these concepts that have existed and are still existing in many societies, as you just said. But what is interesting is that you are bringing these and presenting them with new technologies. We're associating terms like soul, spirit, reincarnation with these new technologies. And my question is that, first of all, do you believe in these concepts?
Yes. So actually, the concept of animism is something everybody is developing during their childhood. Even in France, Europe, like it's something really strong. And for example, the process in life where you have to leave your toy when you're a kid and you can't play anymore because you're becoming too old. It's the moment where you have to deal with this animism. Like you have to start to refuse that your toys are alive in a way. And for me, it was a very strong moment. Like I never told clearly people, but I think it's very hard because this is the moment where you realize that you have to enter the serious life. And I think in Asia, Japan, Thailand, Cambodia, and I've never been to India, so I don't know. But the animism is a really strong concept connected to the belief, the religion, but also to life, and which is present all the time. In Europe, I think people also have a very strong connection with objects, but it's not in this spiritual level. But of course, animism is present in Europe, especially when you're a child, and yeah, for me it was something that I had to deal with when I was younger. And after I studied a lot philosophy, and became like a very important toolbox for me to think about life, existence, death. But I thought to work with robotics and artificial intelligence was a good opportunity for me to embody those concepts into realistic ideas and into material things.
I mean, I think because yeah, responding to the question that you said that yes, animism does exist in India in all its capacities.
Yeah, I think
It's
so.
basically connected, as you said, with religion, with culture, with spirituality in a very intricate ways, in very small aspects of life that we all witness and that we all see. But I mean, here what you're doing also is that you're connecting these notions, which are there probably in every society in some form or the other, but you're connecting with new technologies. And this might frown some people, that some people would be like, might oppose this association of subjects like soul to a machine. But at the same time, so I see you taking a strong non-anthropocentric position here. What would you like to say about that, and what would you like to say about the people who would oppose that machines are not, they don't have souls, for example?
So I think for me this is a way to question ourselves about our humanities, but I think in Europe also this is in kind of connected to the religion in some ways. In the Christianity, we have this concept of the God is creating the human at his image, and if someone is trying to recreate human, he is taking the position of God. And I think that's why really deep into the culture, even if we are not religious or even if we don't believe, connected to the culture part of the society, like the European society, I think it's a very strong thing that you cannot take the place of God. So that's why I think in the West, it's not working for people to create robots or to animate machine, and that's why they are afraid or scared. And after, there are of course different reasons, especially the science fictions, which is a great vehicle of bad scenarios for the future. But at the same time, in France, for example, people are very technophobic. Like they don't want to get the last technology. They don't want to get the last iPhone. But in the science and philosophy, they are super strong and they are a lot in advance on many concepts. So yeah, I think it's a difference of development. For example, last year I worked a lot in Canada, and in Canada, people they are less like France. We really need to think before doing something. But for example, in Canada and Japan, people are more okay. Let's do something, and after we will think about it. So yeah, I think it's sometimes it's for some people it could be strange, awkward to really embody those concepts into technologies, but also it's a way to just think, because those concepts are not only spiritual concepts, they can also be part of your life or part of the creation.
But actually, what I also think that these concepts, when you include them or when you show them with new technologies, I mean, it creates that space and it makes you achieve what you want to. So, for example, you're talking about coexistence, but so when you say that these objects or these machines and these robots are also animist, and associating concepts like soul and life to them forces you or makes it like it makes people question the very existence of these objects as a life itself. And I think the moment you start seeing or even considering that these objects or these robots or these humanoid could also be a life or and has its own life or soul, I think you come down from that ego of you being the center of the world, and then there begins the negotiation of how can we coexist. Because I think the core theme and the core element of all these three works is to renegotiate our relationship with technologies. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, that using these subjects of soul, of animism, I think you rightly do so. And I think it forces people to think in that particular direction.
And for me, it's also a way to give a voice to objects, like especially in other works I did. I did a work called Exovisions, which is an installation of objects and augmented reality. So I'm using stones, fossils, and petrified woods that I displayed in the exhibition. And people download an app I created to see tiny augmented worlds on the surface of the fossils, the stones. So for me, it was a way to create a dialogue between objects, technology, and people, because you need to be here and to activate the installation to see it. But at the same time, it connects the stone or the fossil, which is a very old element, to something more ephemeral, technological, and which is maybe just a very tiny part of the existence of this stone, because maybe like in 100 years they will be back again in the nature.
Yeah.
And I like this idea also to give voice to objects, to give them a kind of a way of speech. And even if we are just like, I don't know, giving this voice for the present time, but maybe in the future, like we won't, for sure, we won't be there, and they will still stand.
Yeah, that's quite a poetic way to say that. Coming to the last
And
question.
I can, oh, yeah, okay, yes.
No, I'm saying that coming to the last question. So performance, I think, is a very key element for you in engaging with these complex subjects. So how do you curate these performances in the space between humans and machines?
So regarding the performance, this is something kind of new in my practice, because I discovered the world of performance quite recently, and I thought it was a nice way of creating, because you just create in a particular moment on the stage, yeah. Like for me, it's really a challenge to use those technologies in a moment, because like you always have trouble, it's never working. And for example, doing this project with the industrial robots, I had to install it and to shut down the securities, because it's supposed to be in an industrial space with many security spots. And so it's always a challenge to work with those technologies, to make it work, to make it efficient, to make it fit to your ID. But this is what I like, because it's a way to improve my practice. It's a way to develop something different, which will be more in a moment, in a second, in a fragment of time, much more than in a long installation. And yeah, even if my work includes some performative parts, I'm not really like a performer, but this is something I'm working on. I was trying to do through the video small performances myself. So this is something I started to do when I was in residence, or like shooting myself into different situations, and trying to have those tiny moments where I could propose something which is a performative action that I kept in video. But still, this is something in progress, and this is something that I didn't deeply experiment. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, you're doing a variety and diverse kinds of work which actually touch upon so many subjects. And I think I could probably talk to you like this for at least an hour to come to discuss and talk about all of these things, because it's fascinating. And I think it touches upon questions which I think are important to talk about today, and it's essential to discuss and to think about. What are you currently working on before we say goodbye?
I can show you some fragments of my last residence.
Yeah.
I was currently working on a project called Supraorganism, which is a project where I work with glass, and I'm making robotic glass sculptures where I embody a software I started to work on, which is based on bees behavior. So I work by training a machine learning system on a bee swarm to generate behavior and some kind of patterns, and those patterns will determine lights and robotics inside glass structures. So this is something I'm currently working on it. It's a little bit different from my previous work because it's more based on an artificial life system, which is reproducing the bee swarms motion, bee swarms behavior, and I'm also getting and collecting the data by myself. So it's a really huge adventure. And this is a project I was in a residence at ZKM, and it was really wonderful to be able to work there and to display my work. And so yeah, in the future I hope I can present it if we are not locked down.
Yeah.
But this is what I am currently working on.
And hopefully you can present that in India, fingers crossed.
Yes.
Oh, they're beautiful. Looking forward to see this, hopefully sometime soon. Thank you very much, Justine, for this lovely discussion. And thank you very much for all the audiences who are present with us today. Again, I request you to go and have a look and discover all these works of Justine on the website. At the same time, think about these notions, what we just discussed, and I think they're extremely important to have discussions on, to have reflections on about our relationship with machines, our relationship with AI, about the ideas of coexistence and soul shift, which we just discussed with Justine. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you, Justine. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.